Happy Friday, Stallions. Welcome to Mr. B's live stream virtual drawing club. It's good to be back. We missed last week. We had some technical difficulties, but we are back again live for today. Hope everyone's doing all right out there. I know the world's a little crazy. Again, seems like every day there's some new news out. One day it's getting better, the next day it's getting worse, but we're still here, and no matter what the school year looks like in August, we'll be together one way or the other, whether it's this way, which we did the last part of last year, or we're actually face-to-face again, which hopefully we can safely do at some point, because I definitely want to get back into the classroom with you guys and start doing some of these really cool projects we've been talking about. But let's not talk about school so much. This is supposed to be just sort of our time to hang out and talk about drawing. Again, I know we missed a week, so I'm going to kind of go over, hey Sophie, it's good to see you again. We're going to go over some stuff. We've gone over quite a bit. I can't remember how many live streams we've actually had. I want to say half a dozen at this point. And we've covered a lot. And, you know, we usually try to do it about an hour, and an hour is really not that much time for some of this stuff. So you'll see me repeat some stuff. We'll go over some stuff. But definitely as we kind of go through this drawing club, I don't want this to be, you know, the classroom sort of vibe. I'm not going to give you assignments. I would just encourage you as I give you some of these tips and tricks for drawing that I use, just to go ahead and try to practice some of them. Again, the stuff that I'm going over is stuff that when I'm sitting on the couch and I'm just vegging out, or I'm just binge watching Stranger Things for the 15th time or whatever, and I'm just not really feeling inspired to create anything new, and I just want to draw and practice. These are the things that I still do. So as basic as some of the stuff that you see me going over, it's definitely practice. Practice makes perfect with anything, whether you're playing an instrument, whether you're, you know, working out, trying to make a team. It's consistency, and you got to sort of get a intuitive or an innate feeling for some of these things when you're drawing, because then it will allow your creativity to flourish when you don't have to think so much about how to draw a body or a head or whatever. So again, I just encourage you guys. I know, again, I'm not really giving any assignments. I do love when you guys post your artwork on the Google Classroom. And again, feel free. I've had some students ask me if their friends could join the Google Classroom. If they're not, you know, at Anderson Middle School, can they still join? I don't have a problem with that. They can join the classroom. Again, just make sure whatever artwork you're putting on there is obviously school appropriate. It's still connected to school sort of through me. So, but other than that, continue to share your artwork. Some of you guys are actually even making your own comics and sharing those with me. And again, I'm really proud, I guess is the word, when I look at you guys encouraging each other. It's tough being an artist. It's tough starting to do something creative, especially if you see other people who are a little further along. A lot of times you don't want to share your work because you're intimidated, but I'm beyond impressed with this class and with this group of students, how just encouraging you guys are with one another, because you definitely do see different levels. Some of you are obviously have been drawing for a long time and your techniques are solid. and you just do some outstanding drawing. Some of you are still learning certain things with, you know, anatomy and how to draw, and some of you are just starting out because you just, you know, maybe you just got the bug and you wanted to start drawing. But every single level, you guys are posting your work. Everybody's commenting on it, giving constructive feedback. That's very important. Very constructive and specific feedback. So again, keep doing that. If for nothing else, I like just looking at the stuff. Again, when I'm just kind of vegging out, hanging out, and I'll go into the Google Classroom and just scroll through the stream and look at some of your artwork and see what you guys are up to. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to jump into Photoshop, and we're going to kind of go over just a last couple things that we were talking about. So not last week, but the week before, we started talking about shape language and what that means, and when you're drawing, how to tell stories through the shapes that you pick for your characters. So very basic shapes. Remember, when we are drawing heads, when we're drawing eyes, when we're drawing noses, when we're drawing anything, bodies, we want to start with basic shapes. Get your forms, get your story down with your basic shapes. What's happening with your characters, right? Let me go through here. So these were some of the basic shapes that we were talking about, just what they communicate. Remember, circles, sort of, they communicate softness and kindness. Squares are physicality and strength. Triangles are usually for your villains, right? Because they make the viewer uncomfortable and feel a little dangerous. We went over parts of the anatomy, again, the torso, and how to make your drawings dynamic, and how to create your upper body and your pelvis, right? And those are the hard parts of your body. Those are the parts of your body that don't move. So the way that your body twists and moves and bends and stretches, it's all in your abdomen, which is the blue part of your torso, right? Or that connects your rib cage and your pelvis. That's how you create dynamic figures. And we also, last week, I'll go back, and we started putting vests on. So I'm going to grab my pen here. So again, remember, we talked just briefly about the forms. Again, this one here is more of like a female form, where you can see the shapes kind of curving inward on the shoulders, and then inwards sort of as it goes down towards the pelvis. And we're talking about traditional male characters, which is here. We started talking about how they kind of curve out, right? And again, that's form language. We're talking about how do you communicate your character, who they are, right? Because a lot of times you want to be able to communicate a lot about your character without having dialogue, or without saying that this guy is you know, my warrior, and this. People should be able to look at your character and say, that's the warrior character, this is the artist character, this is the wizard character. There's certain things that you're going to communicate. This is my character who's a little that has anxiety. This is my character that's happy-go-lucky. How do you communicate that stuff? And again, it's the way you draw your characters. What else did we talk about? And again, we talked about just the bean technique with how you draw. And let me grab my brush again here. So we talked about the bean technique here of how to draw torsos, right? And you want to kind of just maneuver them around and twist them and turn them and do all those good things, because what we want to avoid is this. We don't want characters that are straight up and down. Again, for lack of a better term, that's boring. Are there circumstances where you might have that? Absolutely, but this right here. And again, I'm going to kind of go off screen here, so you guys don't have to continually just look at me. I'll pop in and out as I feel need. But again, this straight up and down here, you want to try to avoid that. That adds nothing to the story. That adds nothing to your character. It doesn't tell a story. You want to use these simple shapes and twist them and turn them and make them slightly off center and give your characters some sort of flow and movement. Okay. So we also went over gestures, and we'll go over some of this stuff again as we review some of this stuff, because I'm not going to go down at this point. We have over almost 30 layers, so I'm not going to go through everything that we've gone through. And I'm going to create a new layer here so I can talk about what we're going to talk about today. So here's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm trying to give this some type of flow here. We've talked about expressions. We've talked about how to build and construct a head. We've talked about how to build a body, the upper torso, the pelvis, the midsection, how to do gestures with very simple, basic shapes. So as we move on, we're going to start getting a little more detailed now with some of the things that we're going to go over. And today we're going to talk about one of the things that I still struggle with. So you might see me struggle here on the live stream, which are hands. Hands are one of the hardest things to really get a hold of, how to draw them. But, and again, this is what I still do. We're going to use simple shapes to break down the hands. All right, so I'm going to jump into that now, and I'll jump back on so you can see me here in a minute. But when we talk about hands, let's see here. All right, let me just curve this a little bit. So, basic shapes, when we talk about hands, I'm just going to draw. A lot of times what you want to start with is your palm. And again, this is kind of just like a square shape here. Right? Very basic square shape. That's my palm. And you can even do like a dome. This is what I do a lot of times. And again, we're sketching here. This is a drawing club. We're sketching. This isn't going to be perfect. But this is what I do. Because your fingers, if you look at your fingers, and this is what I've seen a lot of people do, but if you look at your fingers here, they're not all the way straight across, right? They kind of, down here on this side, they start low, they go high, and they hit sort of this apex here, and then they start going back down towards your pinky. So that's the kind of shape. When you're looking at complex things, even like hands, right? You want to break this down into basic shapes. So again, with the palm here, I see a square. I see a square there, so I'm going to start with a square. My fingers here, just holding a neutral position with my fingers, I can see kind of like a dome shape. It's almost like a half oval. Like the oval, if this were to continue, it would continue like down here, right? But we don't have to continue that. It's kind of like a half oval if you were drawing that. So that's what I'm going to draw for my fingers up here, which is like this half oval. Your fingers too, and I know I keep popping in and out here, but I want to show you. Your fingers, I'll use my right hand here, it's a little easier. If you look at your fingers, and you can look at your fingers now, but your fingers are basically sectioned off into 3 sections. Right? You have your joints of your fingers. So that's what I'm going to do too. And those sections, they follow the same curve of your fingers. So I'm going to draw that now. I'm going to draw that, and I want 3 sections. And again, we're not looking for perfection here, but there's 3 sections there. And then your wrist, if you look at your wrist is obviously a lot skinnier than your palm. Your palm goes out. And then your thumb. So your thumb, I usually break into 2 sections. You have this sort of curvy part of your thumb here, like this. It's got a little bit of a C curve here, and then a curve down there, and then it kind of curves back out, like that. Right? So you got a kind of a curve here, and then a curve here, right? And that's your thumb. So that's how you break a hand into sort of its basic shapes, and then you can kind of Just break the hand down like that. Put your center lines in for your actual fingers. Right? And again, that's where you want to start because, like we've talked about before you sort of get heavy into, I'm just going to draw this hand and I want my hand to be gripping, a book or a cup or whatever. You want to draw the basic shapes. Get the forms down first, right? Because you might change it or you might need to adjust it, and you don't want to spend hours perfecting the knuckles on your hand and the hair coming off the knuckles or the fingernails you don't want to do all that. You want to get your basic forms down first. That's just good practice. When we talk about drawing, it's good practice. All right. The other thing I like to do, and we talked about this even with the torsos, is now that we have these sort of basic shapes, is break them down into three-dimensional shapes. It gives some weight to the hand. You get to sort of better understand of how the parts sort of interact with each other. So again, as I draw this stuff, one of the things, and let me erase that because I need to go down a little further here. One of the things that I talk to students with, I had some students asking me about just some of the videos. Again, I don't expect everybody to be able to make every live video. The live videos are posted in the classroom for you guys to review, and what's great about that, and it's the same thing that I do with my videos of the artists that I watch. Live streams are awesome because you can sort of watch me do things live. If you have a question, you can ask it, and those kind of things. But the recorded videos are nice too, because what you can do is you can watch me do something and then pause the video, go to your sketchbook, go to your tablet, whatever it is you're drawing on, and then try to replicate what I'm doing. That's the first step with anything, is if you're replicating Mr.B or you're going into comic books, try to replicate what you like. So I'm going to draw this square again. But now I'm going to curve it a little bit. I'm going to give it some depth, right? Because everything that we draw has some depth. So this is the same hand, but now it's got, so this is my palm, right? And I'll just write palm here. I'm going to draw my fingers now. Remember, there's 3 sections, so you can kind of make them look like bones if you want. They don't have to be perfect, but they're hovering over here. But I want to give them some dimension now. And remember, we have 3 sections here of hand. Just curve it off here to the side. And the great part about this now is, again, when you look at the top, when you look at the crest, right? Like the crest of a wave, like this is a wave, that's the top of the wave is called the crest, right? This is also the crest of your hand. It comes to a point, so your fingers start to get pointed sort of as they go up. So as you're building your hand, even in 3 dimensions, this last section, you're going to kind of round off a little bit. All right, there's your finger. And then we'll do that with another section. Right. And we're just building out this hand now. We're just getting a feel for how the hand moves, the different sections of the hand. Let's see, this is one of the things that I notice I do, is a lot of times you want to start at the top here. Why? Because this part of the hand is going to be a little taller than this part of the hand. Remember, as we go to the center of your hand, it's going to be, your fingers get longer. So you want to make sure that's one of the details that'll really throw off your drawing if it's not done correctly. So again, I'm just sort of making these little pieces of the hand here. Again, did not have to be perfect. I'm going fairly quickly here. right? This part of the hand again. And I'm just putting things now in 3 dimensions because I want to start sort of fleshing out what this hand is going to feel like. And as we get to the end here, make this palm a little thicker here. Just this. All right, we come to the pinky area, and that's going to be your shortest part. Let's move these over a little bit. All right, so you can see as I kind of drew the fingers, I started to change the palm a little bit. I didn't make it big enough, and those are the things that you got to watch. Again, we're sketching. And then the thumb, remember your thumb kind of has this weird shape. It's almost like a cone as it comes off your palm, like this. It's kind of like that. And then I'll bring the thumb up a little bit like this. It's kind of got these sections. And then it curves back sort of down and out, like this. So that's a basic hand as you're drawing hands. And again, hands can be tough because hands can do a lot of things. But as you start getting more comfortable with the hands, again, work with the basic shapes and the basic flows that you're going with. Again, you don't want to start trying to draw something like this right off the bat. You don't want to get too intricate with your hand at first. One of the things, and let me add another layer here. Again, basic shapes. So first of all, start with a gesture. What's your gesture going to be? Let's say I'm going to have my hand going this way. All right, this is going to be my gesture. So let's put the palm in the center, and again, you could use a square or a circle. We'll put the thumb down here. Remember, it kind of curves like that, and then the thumb kind of comes out like this, and then curves again. We're not looking for perfection. And then you don't even have to draw the fingers. Right? This is what we're looking for. We're just looking for the gesture. What's the gesture here? Right? Same thing here. Maybe the gesture is going down this way, this next one. So we want to follow that line. So I'm curving the palm a little bit here. I'm curving it a little bit here. The line here is getting curved. This line here is getting curved. And these will be the fingers. So this is sort of like the back of the hand. Right? So this is just the gesture and the flow. So you could even have another one down here that kind of goes out and up like this, maybe at more of a hard angle. And you'd have the palm here. And the palm could be either the back of the palm or the front of the palm, just depending on your obvious direction. All right, so that's how you start. Just get your basic flow of your gestures. Get the flow of your gestures. It looks messy, it doesn't look like much, but again, that's okay. We're not looking for perfection at this point. Now, as you say, okay, I like this, and I like this, you say, I like those gestures, I like the feeling that I'm getting from those gestures, they look good. I'm going to move on to adding secondary shapes. So you always start with gesture and flow. That's always step one. Step two, you add secondary shapes. So what does that mean? It's a fancy word to just say that you're going to add more detail. All right? You're going to add more detail. So let's add some more detail now. Now that I have these shapes, I'm going to add more detail. So I want my fingers here. This one here is going to be a little bit longer. Right, we want to follow this gesture. So my fingers are kind of following the gesture to give that sort of idea of or feeling of flow. So again, it's not perfection here that we're going for, but we're adding the secondary shapes now. We're adding the secondary shapes as we kind of come in here. And again, and I know a lot of you guys, I've talked to you in class when we were in class, some of you guys that, you know, when we talked about drawing, some of the things that, you know, a lot of people take for granted or, you know, as an artist you get annoyed with is people think that you just sit down and draw something really quickly and you're so talented and this and that. And definitely talent is a part of this, but it's also knowing the process. Drawing is just like math. It's just like anything else. It's creative and it's fun and it's expressive, but there is a process to it. And really good artists understand that process. All right, so let's go to this shape here and let's add some secondary forms. So let's say that this is going to be our top finger. I don't know how this is going to work, but let's say we're not looking at, we're going to look at the side. This is like the side of a hand. I'm going to put my other finger here, maybe, and then I'll put another finger kind of coming down here. And again, I'm trying to follow the flow here, this flow with my fingers. Let me erase a little bit so you guys can kind of see this a little better. There's a lot going on there. Little finger coming down here. That, and I'm going to put another finger here, and got another finger kind of coming down here, like that, and I've got this finger coming down here like that, and then let's kind of erase some of this, and we're going to add the thumb here, and the thumb kind of comes out like this. Curve right there, and this will curve in like that. So I'm just kind of adding my secondary shapes. Again, still not looking for perfection, but I am looking for now just some idea of how these shapes are going to flow in my final picture. All right, so that's looking good to me. We want to kind of maybe cut this a little bit. That. All right, so again, not the best hand in the world, but it's there. The form is there, and that's what we want when we start working with these secondary shapes. That's all we're looking for at this point, is this flow. We want to keep this flow going. To do that, we need to bring this finger out a little bit more. So that's a great example of me stepping back and looking at this line right here. You look at this line. This is sort of your flow line here. My finger was kind of over here, the end point, and I need to bring it out a little bit more so it's closer to that flow line. Same here, we can kind of bring this a little closer to the flow line, and then even this here, we can kind of bring this a little closer to the flow line. As you start building that hand, right? You want to bring it closer so that your fingers follow that flow, right? This is our flow. All right. let's do this next hand. So let's see. Let's see. Let's put the thumb here maybe. And I'm just guessing with some of this stuff. I'm looking at my form and going, okay, I'm going to put the thumb here. Let's say the thumb's here, and we got the fingers up here. Remember, we're following this flow here. Following this flow. And this finger's here. Okay, following the flow. This is going to curve off a little bit. We got another finger here. And then finally this pinky kind of is right here. Kind of curving like that. So then you kind of go back and you erase a little bit and you just sort of start looking at your picture. Is it making sense? It's got, this person looks like they are trying to grab something or attempting to hold something, but there's a hand there. You can see it. Again, this isn't the time in your drawing to get too critical with exactly how it looks as far as is it perfect? Absolutely not. But all you're doing, again, is trying to get that flow. Is the flow there? Right? Is the flow, are the shapes there? Does it feel like what you're doing is working? So again, a lot of times with drawing, especially when you start getting into the more complex things like hands, hands are tricky. I still have problems with hands, and this is a technique that I use with hands. They're tricky. But this is a process that definitely, as you guys get more complex with your drawings, these processes are things that you want to get into because you want to see early on whether or not something is going to work. I can tell you right now, as you get into drawing more detailed stuff and you start telling stories with your drawings, you want to see early on whether something's going to work, and you want to do that with the simple shapes. A lot of times you can draw your simple shapes, you can get your flow lines, you can get your rhythm lines, and we'll talk about that during another live session, but you can see very early on, you can step back from your basic shapes when you build your anatomy. You can step back with what you've drawn and the gestures that your characters are positioned in, and the flow that you've given them, and you can see whether or not what you are attempting to do is working. If you're doing a story, a panel, a page about sadness, and your basic shapes and your flow and the way that you have everything set up isn't reading sad, that's the time to change it. You don't want to change it when you're 8 hours into the drawing and you show it to somebody and go, look, this is, somebody who's, sad that they lost their homework, and somebody's looking at that and they're saying, well, that doesn't look like they're sad at all. And that's 8 hours of work that you kind of put into. So again, start with basic shapes, step back, see if you're feeling whatever it is or reading whatever it is that you're going for in that drawing. All right, couple last things, and then you guys can get to drawing as far as just some free drawing on the whiteboard. I know you guys like to do that. I guess I'll just do a couple different hand poses, and then we'll sort of move on from there. There's some basic hand poses that I'll do, and again, you use just basic shapes. One of the ones that I use a lot, just because of the type of drawings I like to do, which are like comic book drawings and stuff like that, is a fist. And again, you can start with a basic shape and section off your fist with a basic shape. So again, my flow is going to kind of be like this. This is the flow that I'm kind of going for here. So I've got my fist here, Come down here. You can almost kind of see the fist already, but not really, but it's coming. And then you start sectioning things off. So this would be my thumb, right? My fingers, usually when you make a fist, if you look at your fist, when you are making a fist, I don't know how most people make fists. This is how I make a fist. My fingers are tucked under my thumb. I know some people that make a fist like this and they tuck their finger under their thumb. I know some people have shown me that before. And if you were to ever hit anything, you know, with a fist like this, you're going to break your thumb. So if you do make a fist like this, just off topic, you don't want to do that, because even if you're, you know, just in some sort of athletic event, or you're just at the gym and you're punching a bag and you're punching it like this, you're going to hurt your thumb. You don't want to do that. Always have your thumb on the outside. All right? Always have your thumb on the outside and your fingers tucked in, all right, and balled up. So with that said, this is sort of the basic shape for a fist. Right here. And then you sort of just section off, because, you know, you have different parts of your hand. When you look at your hand, you'll see you have those different parts of your hand here. Right? You have these these pads here on either side. You sort of, as you go down your thumb here, you have this pad here, and then as you go down your pinky, you also have sort of this pad that sticks out here. So you have sort of two big pads on your hand there. All right, so I come here, I'm just making sort of a wrist here, and I want to follow that flow as much as I can. So there you go, there's a fist. All right, so again, we're in step one where it's just shapes. Now I'm going to add some secondary sort of shapes in here. And this is where it gets a little more difficult. All right, so I'm going to add something here. I'm going to add this here that kind of goes down like this. And then we're working in 3 dimensions, and this is where it gets tough, because remember, your fingers are going to go this way and then this way. Right? Because they're getting tucked down. Remember, your fingers have joints. So this is a joint right here. So it's going to go down. It's going to go down, and then finally it'll go down here. All right, so I'll just make these like this. And this area here kind of tucks in here. And that's where you can finally see your finger. You look here, your pinky finger's kind of tucked in here. Your other fingers you can't see, right, because they're kind of hidden behind there. But you can see your pinky. And again, depending on what way you're looking at this fist, that's just what you'll see. Again, this is where I start sort of putting things in 3 dimensions. Right? And you can start even adding some shadows. I like to add these little lines here for me. They give me an idea of sort of what way my shapes are going. They just help me with my drawing. That's sort of more of a personal preference. But again, if you're sort of watching this and you're learning from me, feel free to use that. But then I start adding some shadow, right? I think the shadow from here, we'll get some shadow here. And get some shadow here. And then kind of all of this area is shadowed. This is kind of all just shadow here. And this is shadow. And again, we'll just start adding some dimension to our drawings. shadow here. So that's a fist. Again, I'm not going to go into the detailed version of this, but with basic shapes, that's your fist, right? And it's just sort of pointing up. So we went from step 1 to step 2. We went from shapes to step 2, which is your secondary shapes. And again, all that means is that you're adding more detail to the shapes. All right? You're adding more details to your shapes. All right. We'll do one last one, and then you guys can get to drawing, because we're hitting that point in time. I'm going to do a basic shape of just hand holding some stuff, maybe a cup or something. So again, I'm going to start with the wrist here. Let's say the thumb is coming up here. Remember, your thumb has a curve to it. And underneath is like a little pad on your thumb. And then here. And don't be afraid to actually create lines and shapes where you, in reality, don't see some. Again, that's, as an artist, you have to look for those shapes, remember. You might not naturally see them, but they're there. And here's a hand here. I'm going to draw this, and I'm going to curve this around. So this is my palm here. This is my wrist here. And then I'm going to have my fingers here. Now the one thing when they're holding something, and you say, Mr. B, that looks really short for fingers. Well, the fingers are going to sort of be curved in. So this dome is going to be a little shorter. All right, so let's kind of put something in the hand. Let's pretend like, I don't know, let's put a cup here. See how this will work. I'm just flying by the seat of my pants here, but let's put a cup here. Let's change the color so we can see that cup a little better. Yeah, like a green color. So this is our cup that we're going to be holding. Right here. All right, and again, add some dimension to it, right? Because this is going to be curved up a little bit, and then this is going to be curved to the other side. So that's our cup. This is the bottom of our cup, and we're going to be holding it. So let's go back, and let's start adding just some more. So now we're going to add our secondary shapes, and all that means is we're just going to add a little more detail. Right? Let's delete this here because the thumb goes over the cup. Like this. And again, I like to add these lines just so I sort of understand the shape a little bit. And we can erase this too because this is kind of behind it. Or what I like to do sometimes is just make it a little lighter so that you understand you're kind of seeing through it. And then I'm going to add the fingers here. And all I'm going to do is add little circles for now. These are my secondary shapes. And I'm just following the line of the hand, right, that we had here. This line. So there you go. Might not be completely proportional, but those are two different poses for hands. And you know, again, as we do more live streams, we'll go over different poses and all this other different stuff. But just remember, start with simple. Always start with simple. The more comfortable you get with starting with simple, the better artist you're going to be. Believe it or not, the more you get comfortable with simple, the more that you're able to draw a couple circles and some lines, and for your audience to understand with just those few elements, the story that you're trying to communicate or the emotion you're trying to communicate, the better artist you're going to be. Because that's the core of all the art. You're trying to communicate something. All right? We're not doing just still life. Again, that's definitely a skill set, but there's something you're trying to communicate. It might be a temperature. Is it cool in the room? Is it hot in the room? There's always things you're trying to communicate. So always start with simple. The more comfortable you get with simple, the better you get with simple. The better your drawings are going to get when you start getting into the stage in your drawing when you start adding real detail, because that seed of emotion or story is going to be there because of your simple shapes. All right. Alrighty, gang, that is it for today. We are hitting that 50-minute mark. I'm going to go ahead. I am going to put a whiteboard link into the Google Classroom. So if you're not in Google Classroom right now, go ahead and jump into the Google Classroom. And I'm going to put a Whiteboard Fox link in there. And I don't have a specific ask of you as far as what to draw. What I would like to see, Sophia and everybody who usually jumps in there, is let me see a couple sketches of some hands, and then you guys can go off and do your own thing. But I would love to see you draw some hands. And I like to see that because I actually like to watch your guys' technique. It's nice to see how you approach things. It's always good to watch other artists and how they approach things, even when you think you're the best. All right, so I've put the whiteboard link in there. I am going to jump on the whiteboard with you, potentially, maybe draw some stuff. We'll see. All right, so let me go back over here, and there we go. All right, the whiteboard link is up. Feel free to go in there and let's do some sketching and some drawing. I'll put some music on for these last 10 minutes or so, and we can wrap up this week's live stream. And again, thank you guys for showing up. Let's see what you got. I'd love to, again, see some of you guys draw some hands. I'm always curious as to how people approach these things that I draw myself as well. Yeah, take your time. It looks like the whiteboard's lagging a little bit, but that's okay. We'll get it to work. Yeah, very cool hand. Whoever's drawn that, I'm not sure who's in there drawn now, but I like that hand that I'm seeing. Let me go ahead and try to fix this whiteboard here. I'm going to delete this. And let's get a new whiteboard in here. There we go. Now we got it. Yeah, that hand is very, very good. Like I said, I'm not sure who's drawn that. I was starting my own hand over here. Try to do one here in like 3 dimensions. Hands have always been tough for me. Always. And they still are. Yeah, hands are not fun. A lot of times, any artists that I've talked to, any friends that I've talked to, the hands are probably one of the hardest things to really get down perfectly. Well, and I don't even say perfectly, but just get good at it. Like I said, every time I go to draw something, and I could get the whole body down, and I could get the background down, and I could get the feet down, and everything down. The expression's perfect. The colors are perfect. I always, without a doubt, have to go back and look at my hands. Always. And even though it might not be, the focal point of whatever it is I'm drawing, it's definitely one of those details that people are going to notice, especially if it's not done well. They'll notice it, believe me. I know from experience. There's been times where I think that I can go, well, nobody's going to notice these really poorly drawn hands. And I just want to stop drawing at this point. But people will notice. They will definitely notice. Hands are tough. One of the things I'll say too is, as you guys draw, don't be afraid to, this is good. Those are good hands. Don't worry about them looking simple or whatever. I mean, that's the whole point of this, is that if you guys can get down the simple parts of drawing anything, whether it's expressions, gestures, hands, man, you're gonna be so far ahead of the game when you actually go into the details. Actually, it's the funny part and the ironic part of drawing and art, sometimes the details are actually easier than the simple stuff. Anybody can make things look more complicated. But really good artists can make things really simple and communicate really complex ideas. You gotta always, like I said before, you gotta always not be afraid to look silly and do bad work. I do it all the time. Like right now, this hand's not looking so hot. I didn't give myself enough room here. I saw this stuff. Back to the drawing board. Yeah, this is good. Whoever's drawing this here, these are good. I'm gonna go back and do my basic shape too, because it just sometimes when you forget, or if you do a hand and it's just not done really well, sometimes a good strategy is go back, like I'm doing right here, and just remember what the basic shapes are of the hand. You got the dome here, with the 3 sections. You got the hand. And you start making the hand come here. Alrighty, gang. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. Again, awesome work with some of the whiteboard stuff that I'm looking at right now and drawing with you. Some of these hands are awesome. I know, yeah, I'm looking at some of your comments on there, and yeah, hands are tough. But again, if we can get down the basic shapes of the hands and how to just draw them with those basic shapes, it gets a lot easier. And you guys did a great job. Feel free to stay on this link. I know some of you guys are still drawing and doing your thing. Keep doing that and keep drawing together. I will see you guys next Friday. Between now and then, if you guys have some drawings, especially anything that we've been talking about, you know, hands, gestures, torsos, anything that we've talked about on the live stream, feel free to put that stuff in the Google Classroom, or just anything that you're working on. I love to see some of your stuff. I love to give you guys the feedback, especially when you guys are asking for the feedback. And like I said, when I'm just vegging out on the couch, I love to just go through your artwork because it's fun and it inspires me. So keep up the good work. Keep doing your things. These hands that those of you that are in the Whiteboard Fox whiteboard that are drawing right now, they're awesome. I mean, they're as good as any hands that I'm drawing. So awesome work, guys. Keep practicing, keep sketching, and I will see you guys next Friday. Bye, guys.